Welcome everybody to the Serpent Tarot for another pick a card reading. So today's reading is all about why do people stare at you? What is your particular allure that draws in attention? I've seen this topic done by other readers on YouTube and it always seems to be really interesting, bring up some really interesting stuff. So I wanted to have a look at it myself, and in my particular style or way of reading, I want to look at it both from what may be accurate and working really well for you, and also where things may be either projected on you or where it's bringing complications into your life, so that you get the kind of advice from Spirit that allows you to see what is obvious to you and what people are thinking about or wanting when they're staring at you or really focusing on you, but also uncover things that you may not be aware of, so that you can decide whether or not, for instance, qualities that might be being perceived in you or projected on you, whether you think they're accurate, whether you think they're helpful for your relationships, and so forth. So we're going to start with some tarot to have a look at what are some of the qualities that really bring people's attention to you. Then we'll have a look at how that's working for you, what might be hidden from you, what you may be not seeing obviously. And then we're going to have a look at what might be being projected on you, either rightly or wrongly, either positively or in some form of a challenge, and finish up with some advice from Spirit about how to balance all that energy for your best outcomes. So, as always, what I need you to do is tune in and choose the reading that is right for you. Of course, if you feel drawn to more than one, by all means look at more than one. There might be messages across a couple of readings for you potentially. But to help with the choice, I have an amethyst crystal on pile 1, a tiger's eye on pile 2, and a clear quartz on pile 3. So crystal energy may help you choose. You may have some other way of choosing. If you need to pause the video and think about it and meditate on it, by all means do that, whatever works for you. When you know what reading or readings you want to go to, as always, I have the timestamps in the description box below, and I will see you in your reading. Welcome pile 1 to your reading. So as I said in the introduction, we're going to start firstly with a row of tarot cards, this time from the Dreams of Gaia tarot, to have a look at some of your qualities that are really attention arresting, that really make people stare at you, focus on you, want to be like you, whatever the particular approach is. And from there we'll build into what that's looking like on a practical level. So there's a few things here that I think are very key. One of the things you need to understand about the Dreams of Gaia tarot is it has slightly different meanings for certain tarot cards than others. So I'll sort of touch upon that as I go through. And a good example is the Ten of Wands. So the Ten of Fire in the Dreams of Gaia is not the traditional Rider-Waite-Smith sort of concept of being overburdened. It's actually the concept of mastery. It's bringing all the creative energies together in perfect alignment in the way that the chakras are aligned here, and having a flow and an ease to something, not through just being naturally talented, though normally speaking someone would have a natural talent that they then apply to reach a level of mastery, but also through having just done the work and being prepared to have the discipline and so forth to do the work, so that by the time you become a master at something. So this suggests to me that you have mastered something, a skill, a creative project, a course of study, a philosophical idea, a sport, an athletic ability, whatever it might be. You have put in the hard yards and you are now a leader in your area. You are a master in your area and you are recognized as that. And with all that fiery energy, it's incredibly charismatic. People are drawn to excellence. People are drawn to people who are so good at something that it seems effortless, and yet they sense underneath the amount of work and dedication that has brought that particular ability about. So there is something about you, pile 1, there is something that you have done in your life or you're in the process of doing where you have achieved a level of mastery. If you are quite young and you're still studying, you are very precocious in your ability, and it's a natural talent connected to the dedication that you put into it. But I think for many of the people who come here, you're probably well established in a career, in a creative project, as I say, in something athletic. It may be very emotional. In fact, certainly for you, there is a strong element between if it's creative and your emotions, and having developed a real sense of unity and a sense of emotional enlightenment and joy in what you do, and people find that infectious. But if it's not in sort of an emotional creative area, then the first element about this is that you just shine. You shine with your ability in some way. You are really seen for being expert, excellent in something. And if you're not quite there yet, you're going to be. People have seen the seeds of that. If you think about it, it's a bit like, when Mozart was born. People probably didn't realize exactly how far Mozart would go, but he was precocious and he had the talent and so forth and the musical attunement. You have a similar attunement to something, whatever this is for you. So even if you haven't fully mastered something, they talk about mastery taking 10,000 hours of applied work added to talent. If you aren't quite there yet, you're going to be there, and people can see the potential in you. But I think for many of the people who come here, you have achieved that on some level. So one of the things that makes people look at you, one of the things that makes people stare at you, frankly, is that you are just so good at something that you do. And I do think that quite a few people who come to this reading may have a social media presence or maybe performers or something like that. There's something highly charismatic about that energy, but also highly attuned. If it is in a spiritual area, then you are seen by others as being very spiritually aligned, of having done the work and having understood a particular spiritual medium or something like that very, very well. And some of you may be emotional healers as well. And again, with the chakras aligning, people may stare at you. People may be fascinated by the depth of knowledge you seem to have about how to align energy centers, the spirit, the heart, to bring about really good outcomes. But as I say, it doesn't have to be connected to that, but the fact that we have the 2 of water or 2 of cups and the 9 of cups as well, that does suggest for some of you that this is very much shown in a way in something that is emotional, something that brings joy, something that brings communion and connection with others. So for instance, these 3 cards would be really typical of someone who was a brilliant musician who wrote lyrics to love songs that really touched the hearts and brought people together and healed emotional issues and brought back joy, for instance. So you could literally be a performer and somebody who writes and creates in a way that is very healing to others. If not, then there's something about the way that you operate emotionally. And for some of you, it's about how you work either in the community or in your family, because with this, which is the 6 of Pentacles in this particular deck, that's about almost a stewardship for a family or for a community or for a group, having that sense that you really help lead and help nurture others. So you put all of these together and you get very much a sense of somebody who would be a leader in a community, who really comes from the heart and really helps people progress. This has a very environmental feeling to it as well. And somebody who, the energy of this particular card in this pack is also about shining light on emotional issues so that the darkness can be dispelled and the joy can be uncovered. So for some of you, what fascinates people about you, what makes people stare at you, is that you are a natural leader. You're incredibly adept at something. It's emotionally really attuned and it connects people. There's nothing in what you do when you are so good at something and you are so grounded and established that makes people feel that you are untouchable, that you can't be connected with. You're not sort of someone who is a master in the sense of being really competitive and you must win and you must be seen as the best. It's like it just happens because you are so good at something that you do and it is so heartfelt. You're seen as approachable. You're seen as someone who could be relied on. You're seen as somebody who is a pillar of the community, a pillar of your spiritual group, friendships, or as someone who has an incredibly great love. And if that's the case, there's probably something about both you and your partner, there's a sense almost like of a divine union or something that is inspiring to others. You may be part of a power couple. If you're not now, you may be in this life. That may be one of the things that you're meant to do once your mastery and your groundedness connect to bring that joy into your life. And if that's the case, people are going to be fascinated not just by you, but also by this great love. It makes me think of Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. This is showing my generation and age, I guess, but they were both great actors and they had a kind of on-off relationship, but they were seen as sort of great lovers, one of the great love stories of the silver screen. And I remember seeing an interview with Gary Oldman and he was talking about Richard Burton on his deathbed saying, "She still fascinates me," talking about Elizabeth Taylor, and it really struck me, that sort of sense of some connections are just so transcendent in a way that they are fascinating to us all, and they become a bit of a guidance to us all about what could be possible. Not necessarily that it's easy, because from everything one has heard about that relationship, it wasn't necessarily always easy, but it was nevertheless somehow emblematic of something really powerful. So I think for pile 1, it's a combination of being extremely good at something, possibly in a performative sort of way, I feel. Very grounded, able to make this into your business, into how you make money, but very much from the heart, and it's seen as being either healing to other people's emotions or, as I say, you being a symbol of love in some way. Now, that can be wonderful. What can come with it, and it'll be interesting to see when we look at the other tarot, is that it could create, you know, people being a bit obsessed with you. It could create crushes where you don't necessarily feel the same way, all of those sorts of things. This is a very arresting sort of energy, and a very warm and inviting energy as well. So maybe your challenge may be to not disappoint people who want more from you than you can give, so that you can focus on those where your heart is. But we will see. So firstly, we're going to use a different tarot deck now to ask, how is this sort of energy that you have, this appeal that you have, and how people are staring at you about it, how is that working for you in your life at the moment on a level that you are conscious of? Okay, so consciously, I think that this side of things, the great love, the emotional healing energy and so forth, you're conscious of coming towards that from a position at the moment where maybe you've actually been disappointed in love. So the odd thing is that I think people stare at you because they see you as someone for whom love would come easily, that people fall in love with easily. But for you, there is a kind of a disappointment at the moment around finding the right person, or around past relationships. If you're in one now, that is good. You're still processing stuff from past relationships, if that's the case. It actually looks to me like for many of pile 1, you've almost withdrawn a bit, and it's time to sort of come out of being withdrawn. You took time out following a relationship that didn't work out. Again, it's sort of funny that I thought of Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor, because I guess there would have been that energy every once in a while in that relationship. So it could be that if you relate it to the concept of a great love and being seen as being part of a great love, but it isn't working out at the moment, it may be that it will return. But otherwise, maybe it is a signpost for the real one coming through. Certainly, there's a sense that you need to sort of come out from behind the shadows a bit more to let this ability shine. It may well be that you've spent a lot of time and a lot of energy on something, and it's been very constraining. So for some of you, it may have been study or something like that you've really been focusing on. You put all your energy into that, and maybe you even put relationships on hiatus, even though people are very drawn to you on that level. It may be that you kind of wouldn't make a decision on something like that. Maybe you even disappointed some people because of that, because you were so focused on building your ability that you constrained yourself, you held yourself back in some way. It's interesting that the Eight of Wands reversed there is near the Six of Pentacles, because if you think about it, you've almost got two opposite energies. You've got fire, which is sort of all the action and the energy and movement, and then you've got Pentacles, you know, the earth, which is like the grounding and so forth. I think that you've put quite a lot of energy into grounding who you are in the world and getting the skills and getting recognised and so forth, because it's a lifelong thing. Whatever you do, whatever this skill is that you have, it's been something you've wanted to do from childhood. And it really, I think you probably showed this ability right in childhood. I think I keep getting that word precocious. I feel like you were very, very good at something, and it was very, very close to your heart. Maybe you put it aside for a while, but I think a large chunk of that was because you knew that getting from the dream of what you wanted to be to the mastery was going to take a lot of work and a lot of study and a lot of time out and a lot of time away from other people. But I feel like now you're going to be able to come out and show that and be that in the world more. So people are going to see that more, even though I think they've realised it about you, pile 1, but they're going to see it more. And for that reason, maybe this whole energy around love and what you're drawing in, you now are going to have time for it. So interestingly, I think some of what makes people stare at you, because I think you will draw a lot of romantic interest from people, might be a sort of sense of frustration around it, that like why have you sort of hidden yourself away and so forth. And so as you start to sort of come out more into the world in some way, that looks like, that will draw a lot of that energy. The question will be whether it's the energy that you want. So I think you're aware of this. You are aware, because that's what this line is about, that you have put this side of your allure to the side while you worked on the mastery and the grounding, because it's a childhood dream. It's sort of something that you've always wanted to be, and you're there, or you're just about there. So you're conscious of that, and you're conscious of maybe that's drawn some curiosity from people about, who really are you? Particularly, as I say, I think a lot of you are very physically and sort of emotionally attractive to people. So you know that in a way, and you've made the choice. What don't you know? So let's ask Tarot, what is going on in the way people are responding to you that you don't really consciously see at the moment? Okay, so I think what you're not conscious of, Pile 1, but I think you need to be, is that you draw a lot of passionate interest in you, definitely, but you also draw a lot of competition. I think that you have a lot of admirers who look to you. They admire what you can do. They find you very attractive. They see you as loyal, dependable, responsible, all those sort of things. But you also have people who want your radiance. There's two in particular here, I think, coming up as the King and Queen of Wands reversed. They want your radiance, but they don't have it. So they kind of look at you to work out, well, what are they doing? Like, how do I get that? And they want to take a shortcut. With the Page of Wands reversed, one of the things that's true, this could be the same person, but I feel like it's two different people. But even if it was the same person, what the characteristic here is that the people who are jealous, and there are people who are jealous of you, want to take shortcuts. They want to move sort of from the Page of Wands instantly into the mastery and so forth. They don't want to have to do the work that you've done. And they resent that. They resent your natural ability. It makes me think, it's funny that I thought of Mozart with this, because I remember a film called Salieri, which was about the life of Mozart. And there was Salieri, who was, a very good musician as well, but just not the genius that Mozart was, and the jealousy around that. So it's a bit like that sort of energy. It's the energy of the people who are not, no matter how hard they try, and though I don't think by and large they want to try all that hard, they're not going to be where you are. So I think you need to be aware that what you've achieved, what you've developed, whatever it is, people are going to be jealous of it. And what they might try and do with that is raise questions, like questions about, are you right? Questions about, are you reliable? And part of it may be connecting around the emotional side of things. These are people who would use a bit of emotional mind games, either with you or with other people around you. So I think that Spirit wants you to be aware that as you start to really shine and you draw more and more energy to you, there are some jealous people who may try to manipulate either you in terms of your self-esteem and how you see yourself, or may try and manipulate others in how they view you. What's good is the Magician is here. So what you don't realize about yourself, and what they don't realize, is that you have brought so many energies together. These two are very connected. And because it does come from the heart and it is also grounded, you have brought those things together. You are the Magician. You are able to get past that. You aren't ultimately someone who's going to lose the battle. And these people are not on your level. So they are not going to be able to stop you. But I think that the Magician is also a card of communication. So I think it is very much saying that once you're really aware of this, you know who this is, you can turn the tables on the communication. Like if they wanted, as I say, to play mind games, they don't understand people as well as you do. And they're not as trusted as you are. And they're not as good at whatever this is. So you can do something with this. Do not feel discouraged when this starts to happen, but recognize it for what it is. Okay, so let's have a look at what feelings people have around you. So this may be picking up mainly the people who stare at you, who are fascinated by you, want to be close to you and so forth. It might also pick up a little bit of this negative energy as well too. But let's just have a look at a few cards around feelings that you evoke. Okay, so firstly, surprise. I think that's probably the majority of people. You know, you are kind of the shocker than you represent something that is fully formed, something that, as I say, is reliable, but also emotionally rich. People really enjoy that. Like the most people around you are really going to enjoy being in your company and enjoy being around you. But we also have the inadequate feelings. So some people won't feel they can be in your league, and some may in fact act in a way that eventually they regret. So it's possible that one of these characters, though a competitor, will see the error of their ways and so forth once the sort of battle is done and feel regretful and so forth. Others may be regretful because they fall in love with you and you're not reciprocating because you're with someone else. So there's that possibility as well too. But you excite people, you surprise them, your energy is so strong and so interesting, but that can make people feel inadequate, and then maybe they act out a bit. So there's a little bit of that frenemy energy around this, but it might be that, you know, they aren't necessarily bad. They just don't feel at your level. But if they really try and sort of badmouth you or something, maybe they will feel regretful. So what do people, whether they feel inadequate around you, whether they feel regretful about not being able to connect enough or something that they do, whether they're surprised and reveling in you, I want to look at some characteristics and just see what is projected on you. And the point of this is for you to think, do you think this is accurate or not? It's neither good nor bad, it's just being aware of it. If you don't think it's accurate, then maybe think about how to change that, that feeling about you. If you think it's accurate, then think about how to use it for your best outcome to continue to be seen as this emotionally balanced, masterful and reliable person. So we'll start with the Astro Dice with a couple of rolls of the Astro Dice. So the 10th house, Cancer and the Moon. So you are seen, this is picking up this energy actually, I think, even though that's an earth sign rather than a water sign with Cancer. But Cancer is very protective of the family. There is definitely a sense there that for some of you, you are very protective of your loves and your family or your community, and that's a large chunk of what you are about. And I think it is true. Of course, the issue is, if any of it is a bit excessive on any level, you need to think about that. With the Moon, it's very emotionally based. People very much look to you for that support and that sense of responsibility. And it's somehow in your career with the 10th house. So many of you may be in careers where your capacity to look after other people is something that people are really focused on with you or expect of you. So that's fine if that's what you want to do with your life, but if you're wanting to do something else, then you need to be aware of how much people project on you, the sort of leader within the community, the leader within the family. All right, let's roll it one more time. And we have Mercury in the 12th house in Aquarius. All right, so that's interesting because here, the one sign that we didn't have in here was an air sign, and Aquarius is an air sign. This looks like a fiery, grounded, emotionally rich individual, and people are fascinated by you. But some people also project on you because of the way you communicate with Aquarius as being a little bit detached and being a bit secretive with the 12th house. Now, that's worth being aware of. Now, it could be true. You could think, well, actually, at the end of the day, a lot of this is deeply personal, and I want people to see that I'm good at what I do and I'm reliable, but my love life is my love life. So if you were someone in the performing arts and everybody wanted to know who you were going out with, you might go, actually, I'm going to keep some of that to myself and I'm not going to talk about it, and that would be fine. However, if that isn't the case, if you're not sort of thinking in those terms, be aware that maybe part of what might be being projected on you by others who are jealous of you is a sense that you are not caring enough about others. Like it's almost hiding these two energies and focusing on these. So there is something in the way you communicate which can be seen or projected as being a bit detached. The other thing I'm getting is for some of you, that's where somebody falls in love with you, because you're going to get people falling in love with you without you necessarily reciprocating it. So some may find you a bit detached and withdrawn and so forth. That may not necessarily be a bad thing, but you are very soft-hearted, so I don't think you would want to appear cold. So think about how you communicate. Okay, let's have a look at a few personality characteristics that people see in you, either rightly or wrongly. Okay, so I think the first one, cautiousness, picks up that Aquarian Mercury in the 12th house. I do think that many of you won't necessarily show to everybody, only the people who are closest to you, the sort of soft inner core that you have. I think people think that you are a little bit cautious about who you let into your life. I don't think this is necessarily a bad thing, but it can sometimes be taken up as heedlessness. So just be aware, particularly if people are trying to compete with you around getting attention, what they might try and do is imply that you won't be as close to people, you're also reserved compared to them and so forth. So then we also have mirthfulness, which I think is nice. So I think that's sort of picking up this sort of energy. People see you as liking to have fun. I think this connects to those particularly who have that surprise revel in your attention and so forth. They just see you as someone who has joy. And I think it's interesting because, as I say, that card there suggests joy with the Nine of Cups. In traditional tarot, it certainly is all about joy and wish fulfillment, but it's also in this pack about shining light to dispel the darkness. So people may see you as more naturally joyous, or that life's always been easy for you. In fact, that's not true. You've put the work in and you've dispelled your own demons, really. So there is that sort of side to be aware of. Is it true? To what degree? And who do you want to be seeing you as mirthful and having fun and so forth? There's also a possibility too that with the mirthfulness, we've got ridicule down here. You may have quite a sharp tongue when really called to it, particularly with the Magician there. So be aware that some people might feel when you're just joking around that because you're feeling very self-actualized and balanced, not everybody else is. So there might be just being aware of how you use humour sometimes. Some people see you as someone who's really about building the material, about being acquisitive. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. And if you put the hard yards into developing a mastery, then you should acquire stuff for that. You should make sure that you are paid your worth, that you are recognised and all those sorts of things. But again, people may use that to try and make out, oh, it's all about the money to this person and so forth. And that's not, you in your core, you're much more emotionally attuned and much more about relationship. So that may be projected on you. The other area I want to look at in terms of what might be projected on you, I'm just going to pull a couple of archetype cards just to see if there's any other energy that might be projected on you sort of archetypally that, again, may either be right or wrong. Okay, that's interesting. So firstly, there's Taurus. So Taurus, I think, picks up that. It picks up the sort of the material and a bit of the acquisitiveness. So that tends probably to be a little bit more around Capricorn. But nevertheless, earth sort of energy. Certainly enjoying yourself, the mirthfulness and the sort of like the fiery energy with the emotion. You probably really like a good party. You love going out to have great dinners at restaurants, wine and song, all of that kind of thing. So they definitely see you as someone who is earthy and enjoys the good things of life. Don't think there's anything wrong with that. But again, whether or not any of this could be used by those competing with you, it's worth being aware of. We've also got addict. Now, I don't think that there is anything in your actual energy or what most people see in you that is addictive. But I think when it's got near acquisitiveness and we're thinking about people who maybe feel lesser than you, I think, again, it's something they might try and make out that you're sort of an obsessive, that you're addicted to what you do, or if you are very well known, you're addicted to fame and so forth. So there's nothing else in this that is suggesting any other form of addict, but I think that some may think, and again, if they feel for you and you're not responding, that somehow you're connected to or obsessed with somebody else and so forth. So it's just worth knowing that somebody might project that. And I feel like it's projected. I think it's more that the people who think that are more likely to have addictive forms of behaviour. But I do feel for you that some people may try to misrepresent you, so it's worth knowing how you might be misrepresented. Okay, so let's finish up with some advice from Spirit for you. So there were some pre-chosen cards around just energies to make sure that what people are really focusing on and staring at for you are the things that you would want them to focus on and stare at you for. So black tourmaline and manifestation. Okay, so you are a manifester, definitely, with the Pentacles energy and also with that sort of ultimate mastery. So Spirit wants you to focus on the manifestation that you bring in, create the life that you want. Don't get too worried about the rest of it. Just be aware of it so that you can nuance it. You are more than a match for anybody with the Magician, and you are a manifestor on that level as well too. But it might be worth having some black tourmaline around you for protection, recharging and grounding, because I do think, I mean, there's a lot of fiery energy for you anyway, though you are naturally quite grounded, or people see you that way. But there's a lot of emotional stuff coming to you too. You are definitely going to have a bunch of fans, I think, and then you're going to have some competitors who aren't happy with that. So black tourmaline is a good way to protect yourself and ground yourself. There's a couple of affirmations as well that I pre-chose. So your heartbeat is the song that's always with you. This goes back to my feeling that some of you might be around creativity, around music, but beyond that, it's also that core with the emotional stuff and what brings you joy and your connection. That's what's the song. That's the thing that really raises your vibration and raises who you are. It makes it very hard too for people to misrepresent you. We've got doubt kills dreams, not failure. So don't let them get into your head. That's what they're going to try and do. And you are more than a match for them, pile one, but you just don't let them get into your head. You aren't doing anything inauthentic. You should be recognised for what you do. You do know who you care about, and you will be very loyal to those people when that's the case. But don't let people pull away at what your energy is. And so finally, a little bit more information about your energy that you can use. Okay, so we've got lemon. So that's sort of in the solar plexus and the heart chakra, a bit of a combination of both, with clean, fresh and new. Something you're bringing in is new. Something you're bringing in is very innovative in some way and whatever, but it's because you're a master. Masters are the ones that bring in the new, because they have to know all the foundation and the grounding of things to be able to bring that in. But you are like a breath of fresh air for people. It's part of the reason that they stare at you. It's part of the reason they're fascinated by you. And with burgundy, we have ambition, honour and respect. So always remember that you can be ambitious, and it doesn't get in the way of this sense of stewardship, of honour, of respect. It won't get in the way of sort of the balance of the emotional side of you and the joy that you want to bring. People will try and question your motives, I think. People will try and project on you motives that you don't have, and they will project their own lack of honour on you. But it's only because you're so good at what you do and people respond to it so strongly. So don't let that get in the way. As long as you don't do that and you keep with the heartbeat, the song in your heartbeat, then really nobody can stop you. And people will stare at you, pile one, but for all the right reasons. So I hope that was interesting to you. I hope that it resonates, and I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe. And if you feel like you'd like to share, I'd love to hear about how this is connected for you in the comments. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 2, to your reading. So these 4 cards from the Dreams of Gaia Tarot are meant to give us an idea about some of the qualities that you have that make people stare at you. What's your allure? What brings people's attention to you? And then we're going to use another tarot to look at what you know about that now, what you're conscious of and how it's working for you, and then also what you're unconscious of before we start looking at the complexity of all of this. So this is interesting. For a start, we have both water and fire here. We don't have air or pentacles. So the things that draw attention to you are emotional and sort of charismatic, action-oriented, creative. So I do think that many of the people who come here, there's something in your life purpose that is creative or very emotionally resonant, and which sort of shines out with that sort of resonance and so forth. People find that fascinating. People, stare at you because you seem so present, both emotionally and also creatively. They also see you as someone who's on a journey, and I think they're quite drawn to that journey because it's very interesting. We have both the 3 and the 6 in both the 2 suits. So we have the 3 of fire, or the 3 of wands, which in this suit is about really setting off with your own vision. It really doubles down on the Rider-Waite-Smith type of thing, takes it to another level. It shows that you have, in whatever this thing is creatively, in terms of your passions, whatever it is that is drawing people to you, you have worked out something that is unique to you. You are not going to copy anyone. You are going to be very, very original. And possibly because you've spent some time almost trying on other people's personas or ambitions, or even like the ambitions that your family have for you, whatever it is, you've tried all of that on and you found it wanting. You know that you need to be true to yourself, and people are really drawn to that. People stare at you because there's something unusual about you, something you probably dress really unusually, or maybe you have very interesting colours in your hair, or there's something a bit dramatic, something very you about the way that you present yourself. And there's something about the emotional resonance of what you do, your sense of joy in the world, your sense of joy around the inspiration that's coming to you, and about what you can do in the world. It could be highly creative with these 2 things together. You could be a very creative person in sort of painting, art, music, something like that, and people may see a very individual style and a great deal of passion for what you do. But it could equally be in other sorts of realms of life. It could also be that you are just incredibly attractive to people physically and emotionally. You just might be a bit of a heartthrob as well, but it's got to do with your joy and your individuality. So something that really makes you stand out. People really look at you because you really are different. You really are unique. You really are someone who's going to walk their own path. Now, the interesting thing about that is, for all that we have this sort of sense of the joy and the celebration and the sort of newness and the uniqueness, that hasn't lost a sense of connection with others and an understanding of others. The other thing that fascinates people about you, that makes them stare at you, is that you are so unique, you're so different, and yet you're also a natural mediator. You're someone who really can meet people halfway. In creative fields, you would be a natural collaborator. You also help out where there's conflict. So the Dreams of Gaia Tarot have some different meanings sometimes to the Rider-Waite-Smith. So the 6 of Fire for the Dreams of Gaia Tarot is more about mediation in the creative process, in the competitive process, and so forth. So great teamwork, great connectivity. You might be incredibly good at sport, actually. That might be one of the things. You might be sort of someone who has an incredibly unique style, but you also are really good at bringing that together in a team thing, the sort of bend it like Beckham type of energy, like something very unique, but also can work well with others. And people really stare at that. They really try and work out, how does that work? How can you be so unique, but then also so good with other people, and so kind? There is a kindness to you. There is a compassion to you with the 6 of Cups here. That is very much a connection to others as well. So people stare at you because you're almost a bit of a paradox. You are the absolute archetypal individual who runs their own race, who has their own vision, who takes joy in that, who doesn't need the approval of anybody else. But on the other hand, when push comes to shove, you're extremely good at dealing with people on the emotional and creative levels, and you can certainly collaborate whenever you need to. So you are, and you just come from your heart, and you come from your sense of self and ambition and action, and you like to get things done. You like to move quickly with things, but have an emotional resonance. And it's just a fascinating combination that draws people to you. Because I can't quite figure you out. With the lack of air signs there, it's sort of like you're not necessarily telling people your secrets or your philosophy. And with the lack of pentacles, it's not like you can be sort of constrained into a particular box and this is what you fit and this is the career you fit. I suspect you'll have many different sorts of careers and different sorts of approaches and so forth in your life, because you're always going to, it's the road less travelled sort of idea from the Robert Frost poem. It's that, you're that kind of energy, and people really watch that. You're unpredictable, but you're also fascinating. So let's use tarot to ask what you know about this at the moment. Like, how do you know that this is working for you and so forth? And then we're going to have a look at what you're unconscious of. So firstly, in terms of how people respond to you, stare at you, are drawn to you, what is working for you? Okay, so firstly, you know that people see how different you are and that you are not going to be constrained on any level. You know, with the devil reversed, that people can see that you are not going to be caught in any kind of trap, any kind of definition. You are really, and you can be a chameleon if you need to be, a shapeshifter, anything like that. Again, like in terms of examples of it, a sort of a David Bowie or a Madonna, if it was sort of in the music industry, you aren't ever going to be trapped by even an old version of yourself, let alone what anybody else wants to put you in. You know that people can see and are captivated by that. And you also know that people understand that you didn't reach that easily. One of the things in this card, in this deck, is the sense that you, as I said, might have tried to be like other people, tried to fit in before, and you've realised, and then you just can't do that, and that's not your path, and so you've broken free of that need to belong and so forth, and possibly even the sort of impetus and the requirements maybe of a maternal figure around you. There may have been, you may have very much broken away from your family or from those sorts of expectations of what it is to be creative, what it is to be abundant and so forth. You might literally have had to leave home early, for instance, to find your own way in life, for instance. So there's something that hasn't been easy about it, and people know that, or you're aware of that. You're aware that's part of why people are fascinated by you. They know a little bit about your story, I think. And you know that you've only just begun, and that people know you've only just begun. And that sort of fits with sort of 3s and 6s. You're on your way into whatever this is. And you may well have already had, 20 years of a career, but if that's the case, you've now really found out who you are, and you're now starting with the second wind. You're now going to be doing something that is much more true to you than what you've done before. For others of you, you might just have finished study and all of those sort of things, and you've freed yourself from all that intellectual requirements so that now you can be more yourself. But it's only just begun, and you're aware that there are people around you that maybe want you to fit more what they want, and may not be above trying to sort of give you offers that are not going to serve you at the moment. So it's possible that for some of you, you're drawing a lot of attention in terms of your creative and individuality, that people want to get into contracts with you or get you to work for them or something like that, and you're aware that you're getting those offers, but you also know that you need to be careful about that. So given that, let's have a look at what you may not be conscious of in the way that people are responding to you, because it might help a bit with knowing what to trust there, because you are able to mediate. If there is a conflict or a negotiation, you're naturally able to find the centre point where two people that seem to be opposed, or two positions that seem to be opposed, can actually come together, can actually find they're talking about the same thing, just using different language or something. So you can do that. But what don't you see about how people are staring at you and your allure, that's hard to say, pile 2. Okay, so I actually think this is picking up. I do have a sense for quite a few of you that part of the hard-won thing to be so individual was breaking away from something in your childhood or early in your life or earlier in a career. So it's going to depend. If you, as I say, are like 20 years into a career and you're now moving into something new, this could just have been a strong feminine type of energy that wasn't the right sort of managerial energy for you. And getting back in alignment with what you really wanted to do, maybe from much earlier, but you put aside to fit in, and now you're not going to fit in. But for others of you, there is something still from your past, and even from influential people in your past, that has some value for you, that actually will help you become more and more who you are. Like, don't just throw it out. This is saying don't just throw it out. If something was difficult, if there were difficult relationships around you, that compassion that you have helps you not lose sight of the joy. And so it's important to be aware of that there's something that was difficult. There was a relationship that was difficult around you. And I feel it's much more like a parental or sibling or work relationship than a love relationship. But it could have been a love relationship, but it doesn't feel like that. It feels more like someone who was pivotal in your early maturation in one form or another. And what you aren't seeing at the moment is there is still something to be had from that. It will actually help you really come into that energy, because the Six of Cups in the Dreams of Gaia is very much like the Temperance card, I feel. It's very much about bringing that balance of head and heart. And if there are issues around the head, around deciding what to do, and if there's been a lot of mental drama, which is why you want to live in your heart and your ambition and your creativity and not in your head, it will help you balance that out. So there is something in there. There is something around an earlier formative type relationship that still has some value. What that is, I'm not sure. For some, it could be a relationship, a love relationship with the Five of Cups, but it just feels like you've got caught in what was painful in that, and so it's blinding you to what could make you authentic and make you get to the King of Wands quicker, get to who you are quicker. So there's something in the way that people respond to you that has to do with the way people early in your life responded to you and what you took from that you're not necessarily yet really seeing. And so I actually think the more that you start to chart your own course and you find that you can mediate and bring joy to others, the more you'll start to appreciate that. So I don't think there's a huge urgency around it, but it's worth knowing. I think you're not aware that people see you as further advanced on all of this than you personally feel. So part of your allure is to you're thinking, well, I'm just sort of starting out and I think I understand a bit about people and how to manage the various sort of sides of things. People see you as further along than possibly you are. They see you as a role model, as a prototype, as an example, and you may get a lot of copycats for that reason. Not because people mean any harm, I don't think, but because they go, oh, okay, that's what it is to be an individual. I mean, again, it's a bit like, there are lots of, musical people that were a bit like Madonna after Madonna, or a bit like David Bowie after David Bowie. It's that kind of feeling around it. So, talking of feelings, let's look at what people feel about you that you may or may not know. When they're staring at you, when they're fascinated by you, pile 2. Okay, so you're definitely a heartthrob. On one level or another, in whatever way this works out, there are definitely lots of people who find you very attractive. They really, and fun. You are fun, actually. And people are really drawn to that. You have a real sense of fun, a real sense of style. It's very charismatic. So you make people want to be part of that and part of the fun. And sometimes they get disappointed if they don't feel they can keep up, or they don't feel they're in the inner circle or whatever. So that's something that often happens with charismatic people, and I think you are charismatic. It's almost inevitable, actually. So be aware of that. When you're charismatic, it has a lot of benefits, but it can also create disappointment from people. They want to be in the light of the sun all the time, and it can't. Even if you were fascinated with them back, you're not going to be able to spend all your time with them. So you just need to know that people will often feel they can't get enough of you because they're really fascinated. And they see, with some of you, because it goes, I thoroughly explore my interests, I think that some of them do see a chance of collaboration and so forth with you as well. So let's have a look at what people project on you. And this may be sometimes accurate, and that's fine, or something that you like to think that people think, and that's fine as well. So the purpose of these next 3 bits of the reading is really just to focus in on what are people projecting on you, so you can determine, is it something I would want to encourage, or is it something that I would want to rectify. So we're going to use the Astro Dice first for a couple of almost personality characteristics. So we have Capricorn in the 11th house with Neptune. Okay, so Capricorn, I think Capricorn, this is what's picking up here, where people see you as sort of older, more established than you possibly feel you are. So I think you feel like you're really just getting started on what matters to you in your life, no matter what age you are, but other people see you as being quite well established. And they may think of you as someone with the King and Queen here, someone who comes from privilege possibly, and that might be true. Maybe you have come from a reasonable amount of money, so there could be that. Certainly privileged networks potentially and social connections with the 11th house. And with Neptune there's something that's a little bit ephemeral and strange and maybe a bit psychic about it, or it could be in very Neptunian things. I do feel some of you are in performing sort of areas, or could be if you wanted to be, with that sort of energy. But there's a sense here that people think that you're either further advanced materially than you are, or that you have the right connection. So if somebody's going to be jealous of you, then they may sort of say, oh, well, it was easy for them. And again, they're not seeing what you went through. It wasn't necessarily that easy. If you had family money, for instance, with this sort of reading, it didn't come without some emotional strings attached to it. So let's roll the dice again. And this has the moon in Taurus in the 4th house. So the 4th house is really who you are at home, who you really are at your core. So there's something that people see that's quite Taurian about you. And that's interesting because they're fascinated by the emotional and fiery, charismatic energy, but they still see you as being grounded in some way and enjoying the good life. Like, you are a lot of fun and people really want to spend time with you because you really enjoy the good things in life. And I think that's great, and you get a lot of emotional sustenance out of that. But maybe they, again, misunderstand, pile 2, that's one side of you, certainly. But you are also quite serious underneath. You have gone through a lot to get to this point of understanding who you are. Okay. Let's have a look at some personality characteristics that people may project on you to see whether you feel this is right or wrong or somewhere in between. Okay, there's a lot of similar energy here, though. Vividness, as they call it, but it's pretty basically just being like very vivacious, effervescent and so forth, fun. They definitely see you as that. So the only issue to be aware of is that sometimes they may see you as reckless, or they may think that this degree of I'm going to follow my own highway. Some people, potentially maybe your family, may feel that that is reckless, but most people just see you as very effervescent, very energetic, and very attractive, very attractive. Maybe someone who likes to play around a bit, maybe someone who likes to have the good things in life on that level, or they may suspect that of you, that you indulge. That may or may not be true, so that's something to be aware of, that they may think that with that kind of combination of fire and water, they may very much see you as someone who lives for love and maybe doesn't really want to settle down and is always going to be the free person and so forth and draw people to you. So you do just need to work out whether that's true or not, and whether it's something you're comfortable people think about you. They also think you have some secrets, which might go together, actually. Really loving the good things in life, you might need some circumspection. So again, they may think more's going on in your life than it actually is. They may think if you are a bit circumspect about this stuff, but they see you as so attractive, they can only imagine that you're having this wild life, and when in actual fact you're not. The best thing of it is around balance and really being able to have a sense of consequences about actions. So I think it's a good thing for people to think that you have. That makes you feel reliable, and certainly if you're wanting to collaborate with others. But I do think for many of you, there's a lot of projection on you as being this incredibly attractive, vibrant, individual person who probably draws, romantic attachments like flies to honey. So there's something in that, and you just need to work out whether that's really what you want, and maybe it is. So let's have a look also at what archetypes people may project on you as to whether or not these are right or wrong. Okay, so this is interesting because this is very out there and different and individual, but I think that with the circumspection, some people may think when you aren't showing everything, like maybe you've actually, I'm getting that you've let go of masks that weren't true to you, but the masks that you now use are actually all versions of you and they're true to you, but maybe people don't necessarily realise that's the case. They may think that there's something hidden underneath. That might be part of what makes them stare at you, like, you know, are you really what you seem, and so forth. Because I don't feel like you look like an introvert, but I think that people think for some reason that there's something a bit detached about you. Introverts aren't necessarily shy, they just take their energy from themselves rather than from other people. And in a way that fits with someone who is marching to the beat of their own drum, very much so. But I think you're very much about people as well. So I think this may be something people don't understand when you keep your secrets, what that really means, because you do have secrets to keep by the looks of things. So there's something about the connections you have, or even about where you are taking this individuality. Maybe for some of you it's into something quite political and quite power oriented, and then that energy is about negotiating with power and so forth, because you have such an individual vision and you're kind and you really want the best outcomes for everybody. But some people might think you're too clever by half, and they might think that you've got something to hide. There is something there where some of this staring at you is to try and work out if you are what you appear to be, I think. So it's worth being aware of that. Okay, so let's finish up with some advice from Spirit about how to reconcile the differences in here and to make sure that you are seen for what you want to be seen for, and that you draw in the attention that you want to draw in. So firstly, we have the waning gibbous moon and sacred sisterhood. So we have turning inwards. So even if people misunderstand when you turn inwards and you're not sort of, you know, sometimes you're the life of the party, I think, but when you're not and people don't understand that, don't worry about it. You do need to turn inwards. You do need to always recalibrate back with what gives you joy and emotional authenticity to be the person that you want to be, so that the choices you make are authentic. Because you also need to connect with others. With the sacred sisterhood, we have connect with your soul sisters to uplift and inspire each other. I don't think it has to be sisterhood. I don't think it has to be gender specific, but it is about connecting with the right people, because that's the other side of this. You are both individual and united, and you need both. Let's have a look at some affirmations for you. Okay, so I think you're well on your way actually for these affirmations. So healing is remembering you've always been whole. There was something. Where you are at has not been easy. People might think it has been. I think many people do think it has been, but they don't know you well enough. You've really had to go through a lot to get where you are. But now you can show up as you are because you know you're all that you need to be. And if that requires you to separate from others sometimes so that you can recalibrate who you are, that's only going to make you more fascinating and draw more attention to you of the kind that you want, so that you can then connect with the right people. So let's look at some final energies to help you. Okay, I'm going to go do this one first. We've got orchid, rare, uncommon and unique. It's in the sort of colour spectrum of the third eye, so there's something telepathic and connected to others, but it is about being rare and unique. You are always going to be very stylish and always very different. It's just in who you are. And if you have been trying to make yourself fit in with others, you need to step away from that, because your destiny and the thing that's going to draw the attention and the energy to you is being who you are. It will work for you. There's an intensity to what you do with Scarlet, and that gives you motivation and passion. In fact, I think a lot of this kind of heartthrob type energy that's here is the passion that you have for what you do, that sort of fiery energy. And it's about what you're trying to do. It's not about being yourself. It's not about being better than anybody else. It's about being true and then connecting with other people who are true to themselves and having a combined passion and a motivation and an intensity. Whereas I think some people think that maybe you're about winning at all costs, but that's not who you are. That's them projecting that on you. So stay true to who you are. Take the time out that you need to take out. You are always going to draw a lot of attention to you, but as long as you find that space for yourself and you keep going back to what's unique and what you want to achieve, then the rest is going to work itself out, I think, pile 2. So I hope that resonates for you, and I hope you enjoyed the reading. If so, please like the video and subscribe, and comment in the comments if this does connect for you and you can see what it is. It's a really interesting energy. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings. Welcome, pile 3, to your reading. So these first 4 cards are from the Dreams of Gaia Tarot, and they are meant to give a bit of a sense of some of the qualities that you have that make people stare at you, be fascinated with you, be drawn to you in some way. And I think it is a fascination. It's a kind of a combination of awe and fear, I think, that you inspire. For a start, it looks to me as though you are well established in something, or you give the sense that you're going to be. So if you're still quite young in your life, there's something about you, something about your mind, which is precise, off the charts, really, that people know is going to be wreathed in success. But for many of you coming here, I think that's already happened. On a material level, you are very grounded, you are very successful, you have brought your skills to bear to make something that is lasting. So people see you as aspirational on that level. But they also find you a little bit frightening, because with the Queen of Air, your mind is your superpower. You are exceptionally clever, precise. You see through things, so clearly. Like, nobody could deceive you, really. People know that. And I suspect if people stare at you, you stare right back. And I get the feeling they wouldn't be able to hold your gaze for very long in that situation. So if people are staring at you and you don't like it, it won't be happening for very long because they won't be able to sustain it. If it's somebody staring at you that you're equally interested in, then that would be a very interesting eye lock, I have to say, because it would probably be a meeting of the minds. You are someone who people see as having balanced your mind. I think they see you as someone who lives very much in your head, and someone who is very much maybe detached sometimes, maybe even cold sometimes, but at having almost mastered your emotions in some way. I think that they see you as someone who is not able to be manipulated, not be able to be taken off what is righteous, what is balanced, what is just, what is logical, very scientific or very legal. I wouldn't actually be surprised if many of you were in the law or something like that, or you're a university academic, or you're just someone where precision of mind is very, very important. And I think people are fascinated by your mind. I think you probably, something that you create out of your mind, your way of looking at the world, your way of mediating and moderating often quite contentious situations, just draws people in. People just watch it in some way. So it has a feeling of, like, one of the world's greatest barristers, for instance, people who are sitting in the sort of stalls watching the courtroom proceedings are just fascinated by watching you. They're staring at you because you set the intellectual tone of the proceedings. So if you're not actually a lawyer, that's the sense. You would always seem to be right, I think. People may think it's right without compassion, but it's not. Like, I think people who get to know you better and who really watch you, they really start to understand that you really are balancing the emotion as well too, but you are not controlled by your emotions. You let them flow through you. You don't get swayed, as I say. I think in a crisis, you would be amazing. Like, you would be the person that people needed to be around, because you would not let the emotions of the moment take over. You'd be very grounded about getting things done, and you would be able to plan. You are highly strategic. So people are just staring at you because it's almost like it's almost a bit superhuman. It is like a superpower. How do you do that? How do you manage to let the emotion go through you, balance that off, ground this, and have the plan, be the person with the plan, even when there's a crisis, even when things are going wrong? People stare at you because they want to take your lead. They want to see what is the right thing to do, but I do think they're a bit scared of you as well. So it's an interesting energy. So let's use tarot to look at what you know about this already, what you already know, how it's working for you in your life at the moment. This sort of almost scary intellect, but, you know, as I say, the capacity to deal with things in a very fair way, in a way that most people wouldn't be able to do. Okay, I do think most people, if you've come to the right pile, most people this is showing up in your workplace. And your workplace, you are probably either on the leadership pathway or you're there. And it's likely to be, it could be with the Hierophant, it could be legal, it could be government, it could be academic, it could be scientific. It's something very traditional in some way. But you're a change agent within it. It looks as though you're someone who is brought into areas when change is occurring so that you can take it through the dissolution of what is no longer working anymore and all the kind of intellectual baggage that's associated with the kind of almost sort of intellectual petulance that happens when there's change in organisations, that you give a vision and so forth. And I think that you are able to take that leadership role. You're comfortable with it. Though I think you probably see yourself more as a charismatic leader. I suspect you don't know fully, and we'll see what comes out when we're looking at what you're unconscious of, how much you might frighten people as well, because they see you probably more as the magician, and you understand yourself as the magician in another way. You do bring the elements together. You do make them work. But I think that fiery energy is more within yourself. It's not as seen by other people. People see the intellect first, and then they see that sense of being able to manifest, and they are in awe of your capacity to process emotions, but they maybe don't fully see what you think is behind all of it, which is a kind of creative vision and so forth. So the magician for you brings it all together, but I think it's very much the intellect that other people are seeing, but that fits the environment that you're in. I think you are in big environments, traditional environments, maybe spiritual environments. This could be spiritual for some of you. It could be that you are going to be someone who cuts through maybe very traditional old ways of doing things spiritually to bring in a new sort of energy that's very balanced and aligned, and that the precision of your mind does it. But I think you know you're a leader, and I think you know that people are a bit in awe of your intellect and they see you as a power broker in some way. So let's see what you don't know about why people are staring at you, why people are drawn to you. Pile 3, sorry. Okay, so what you may not be as aware, because this is like the Queen of Swords twice, you may not be as aware of how fascinating and kind of intimidating your mind is as it actually is. And one of the reasons you may not be aware of it is that I think that people deal with that fear by being your friend. So I think that you may have a lot of friends around you who are actually a little bit frightened of you, and you don't even know it. They see you as incredibly strong, and they also see you as someone who can take them out of their own sort of intellectual and emotional traps. They rely on you for that, actually, but I don't know that you... So I feel like you see yourself as a leader within sort of a career and so forth, but I think it bleeds over into your friendships. That's what I feel you don't necessarily see. And people see you as the champion of what is right. People think you're usually right, to be frank. Your friends think you're usually right. And I think that you maybe underestimate the strength that people see in you, and the fact that, you know, friends, they do. I mean, it's not saying your friends don't care for you, but I do think that your friends are a little bit in awe of you, a little bit frightened of you as well. And they see you as a person of action and so forth to liberate something. But I think you're not really about liberation. I mean, liberation would happen as a result of you being in an organisation and so forth, but I think you're more about change. I think you're more about what isn't working and what isn't balanced in the world and what isn't sustainable. Like, you could very much do things in the political arena, for instance, but this whole energy comes into the personal as well. And I think that's something that would surprise you. I think that you don't understand how much people are watching you from the friendship circles. You don't even really see it because they're your friends. Whereas people watching you in a work environment or something like that, that you go, oh, yeah, of course they are, because I'm able to really sort of see these things clearly, and I am a leader. So I think what Spirit wants you to know is that sometimes you have to step a bit away from the Queen of Swords and let your friends find their own strength and their own liberation, not always be the symbol of that. And I'm sorry if you can hear that noise in the background. I hope you can't, but somebody's deciding, I think, to do some gardening outside with a fairly noisy machine. So hopefully you're not hearing that too much. So given that maybe your friends are a little bit in awe of you, as well as sort of people you work with or strangers who just happen to sort of see you in action, what sort of feelings do you evoke in people that you may or may not be aware of? Okay, so we've got envious. My qualities are beyond compare. So some people envy you, some people want to be the leader, some people feel you're a bit distant and so forth. And if they're envious, they'll tend to sort of focus on the Queen of Swords sort of energy and see you as detached and distant, rather than understanding that you're just precise and trying to be balanced in what you do. Some are just going to be fascinated. So some are just going to be drawn to you, stare at you, think, you know, you're the most interesting thing on two legs, quite frankly. Like, look at how this person operates. Like, it's fascinating. And some may feel excluded. Some may feel they could never be in your inner circle, because how could they be in your inner circle? Like, how could they measure up? And that's not really who you are on a personal level. You don't give a two hoots about that, to be honest. You really don't. You want your friends around you, and you want them to feel strong and great as well too. This is really for your work and for your philosophy and for your politics. But sometimes people feel excluded because it's hard to keep up. It's hard to be at that level that you're at. So be aware of that. So let's look at some of the things that people project on you. So we're going to start with the Astro Dice for some personality characteristics that may or may not be true. So we're really just saying these for how people project, what people project on you, so that if it's not true, you can think about how to shift that view. And if it is true, or it's something that you quite like that people project on you, then you know how to benefit from it. So firstly, we have the Sun in the second house in Aries. Oh yeah, they see you as very, very ambitious. Very, very ambitious. And it's interesting because they see the Sun in Aries, which is a fire sign, and there isn't a fire sign there, but it does fit with the King of Wands. So there is a degree to which people do project on you what you feel as well too. It's just that you know, in reality, the thing that's drawing them in is more the sort of air sign, and to some degree the sort of earth and water. But they definitely see you as someone who's going to make money, someone who's going to be successful, someone who's ambitious. What else? Then we have Mars in the 12th house in Libra. Okay. Yeah, I do think that for some of you, you may be in the law or in some way where balance and fairness and justice is important, and it's your vocation. It's hidden behind the scenes, but it is where your energy comes from. So there's something they also feel that you have sort of tricks up your sleeve, like your energy and your drive. Maybe you keep it on ice until it's ready to come through. They maybe don't understand how much fire energy there really is in you on some levels. Okay, so we'll look at some personality characteristics as well. And sorry about that noise again in the background if you're hearing it. Okay, so with size, I think that's just they see you as larger than life, to be frank, and to some degree it's true, I think, and certainly intellectually, larger than life. They could accuse you of being too big for your boots sometimes. I think most wouldn't, but if they're frightened of you, they might do that sometimes. But there's a presence to what you do. You know, you are in the world for a reason. They also see you as secretive. That's going to happen with that kind of energy. They don't understand you. At its most difficult, they might see you as cunning or duplicitous or concealing. But I think that's only really the people who are literally going to be in battle with you, because you're not. You're actually very, very, very fair and very balanced. But you don't show your cards until you need to. So be aware that some people might project, but that's just being secretive or cunning. They also compare themselves to you all the time. They do see you as having great business acumen, but they compare themselves in ways, and they may think that you do as well too, that some of this balance that you're bringing to things is almost like weighing up things, the sort of size and weight and comparison between two alternatives. And if that's part of your job, you're going to have to do it. But if it's around your personal relationships, it may be important to make sure that you show a little bit of your soft side and don't always be the leader, and draw out other people rather than them feeling that they can't quite measure up. Okay, so let's have a look at what archetypes people might project on you, pile 3. Magician and victim. Okay, so that's interesting. So they're almost like opposite energies. Some may see you as the magician, and we've sort of seen that card come up with the tarot as well. I mean, somebody who can really kind of pull a rabbit out of a hat, someone who has always got the answer, always going to be able to win in the end. There's true magic about you in some way. But some may also see you as a victim. So I think that that may suggest that at various times in your life you have to take on battles where people perceive that you've had to give up something. And this is probably why we have that particular cups energy of letting the emotion flow through you. I think that some may think things have happened to you that have given you this strong sense of social justice, for instance, or justice in some other way, that they think that, you know, you're a victim, that you're coming from that, but you're actually not. This is wrong. This is something that's been projected, and it's their own victimhood that they're projecting on you, because you can transmute that energy and ground it really, really well. Okay, pile 3. So let's finish up with some advice from Spirit about how to balance off some of the sort of what people get right and wrong when they stare at you. So firstly, we have clear quartz and space. And if I remember correctly, clear quartz was actually I think clear quartz was the actual crystal underneath this, which is interesting. I can't remember exactly. But anyway, clear quartz is about clarity, which you have, healing, endless possibilities. So there is a healing energy with those two as well too. So you don't have to be a victim in any sense. You know how to transmute that, and always being clear about that. Clear quartz may help you when you're feeling the need for that. And then we have space. Hold space for your difficult emotions. So sometimes you are in a battle that's going to cost you to some degree, and people are fascinated by how you deal with that, and they stare at you sort of like almost looking for the cracks. But you need to find space for yourself where you can clear that energy out. Don't do it in front of them, I think, is what this is saying. What affirmations did we pull for you? Okay. If your dreams don't scare you a little, they are too small. Well, yes, you would have big dreams. Big dreams for the world, big dreams for yourself, and that's what you should have. Your dreams may scare other people, though, which is interesting. And maybe that's part of the key with your friends. Get them to come along with you, because remember that we're all together in this. If your dreams yourself sometimes scare you, you know, you've got an amazing vision and people just find you arresting, but there are other people that can help you, and that may be the way to sort of move out of some of the sort of more exclusionary sort of Queen of Swords type energy and move into a more collaborative energy, which is where I think you'd like to be. So to finish off, just a couple of other energetic pieces of advice for you. Okay, so we both in the green energy of the heart. So it does say the heart matters. That's why people misunderstand you if they think that you're just all intellect and philosophy. You aren't at all. You really do come from the heart. Emerald gives you fortune, luck and luxury. So you're going to be very successful. I think it's shown it all the way through. You are going to manifest really well. Some magician energy coming up as well too. Your skills, your incredible mind are going to take you very far if you haven't gone in, and for many of you, you might already be there. But for anybody who's still relatively new in their sort of career or studies, you are going to do very, very well. That's not going to be the issue for you. The issue for you, I think, is going to be how you balance that sort of success and acuity with your friendships. And over here we have elemental fairies and magic. So there's something in that magical side of you that will connect and help you. Listen to spirit guides. Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to things that you feel are magical. There might be a side of you that almost pushes away from that because of all this intellect, but that's probably the key to bring this all together and then to really manifest the King of Wands, which I think is part of the energy that you ultimately want to manage. You want to get to be a leader, but one who is also seen as warm, not just about the mind. And there's something elemental in that for you. There's something about bringing all the elements together with the magician. So pile 3, you are meant to be a leader. You are meant to deal with major change. You are incredibly bright, but that is also a little bit scary. And a lot of the reason people stare at you is that they want to emulate you, they want to understand you, but they find you really awe-inspiring and I must say a bit scary. So being aware of that and how to connect with others and clear your own energy is going to be important. You do have really good friends. They do really look up to you, but you do need to make sure they have their place in the sun as well, and that their thoughts and their ideas are always honoured as well, because they may not be as acute as you intellectually, but there's always something that everybody brings to the table, and the more that you do that, the more you'll become the leader that you want to be. So I hope that resonates for you, pile 3, and I hope that it was helpful and interesting. If so, please like the video and subscribe if you haven't already done so. And if you know what this is, I'd be really fascinated to hear about it in the comments below. Otherwise, I hope to see you in future readings.